Chapter 3, Into the Abyss. The silence after Arvind's departure was more than just the absence of sound, it was the crushing weight of impending doom. Samir stood rooted to the spot, his mind spiraling, heart thudding in his chest like a trapped bird. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating him, feeding on his despair. The mansion, once his home, now felt like a living entity, dark, menacing, feeding on his fear. The decision he had made hung heavy in the air. To protect Riya, he had to let her go. But how could he live with that? How could he walk away, knowing that the darkness lurking in Arvind's eyes would consume her anyway? As the hours dragged on, Samir's mind replayed the horrifying conversation. Every word, every threat, wrapped around him like a noose. Arvind's voice echoed in his head, chilling him to his core. "I'll make her disappear. No one will even remember her." He tried to banish the images of what Arvind could do to Riya, but they clawed their way into his thoughts. Riya's radiant smile twisted into terror, her bright future snuffed out like a flame in a gust of wind. The thought of losing her, not just to the world but to the very darkness Arvind had promised, was unbearable. The mansion groaned, as if mocking him, as if whispering the inevitable. Pacing back and forth, Samir stared at his phone. He had stopped messaging her after Arvind's chilling warning. He had to, every word, every syllable could become a weapon against her. But the thought of her sitting alone, thinking he had abandoned her, gnawed at his soul. Riya didn't know the horrors waiting in the shadows. She thought he wasn't trying, wasn't fighting for her, and that was the worst pain of all. His fingers hovered over the screen, aching to text her, to tell her the truth. To tell her how much he loved her. To tell her that his silence was the only thing keeping her safe from the devil that lurked in his own home. But then his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. With trembling hands, he picked it up. "Samir," a cold, detached voice said. "This is your warning." His blood ran cold, the familiar chill of dread creeping up his spine. It was one of Arvind's men, someone deep within the shadowy world his stepfather had built. "You need to stop looking into her dismissal. Drop it. Or we'll come for her. And when we do, it won't be clean." Samir's mouth went dry, his stomach twisting into knots. This wasn't just a threat, it was a promise of violence, of something far more sinister than he had imagined. His legs gave way, and he collapsed onto the couch, his body trembling. "Leave her alone," Samir whispered, his voice cracking. "She didn't do anything." "Oh, she did," the voice replied, dripping with malice. "She uncovered our fraud. She became a problem. And problems, they disappear. You've been warned." The call ended with a soft click, but the chill it left behind clung to Samir's bones. They knew everything, every move he made, every question he asked. He had been trying to piece together the truth of Riya's dismissal, trying to clear her name and expose the corrupt management. But now, they had made it clear, any more digging, and Riya would be next on their list. He leaned forward, burying his face in his hands, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. His thoughts spiraled into darkness. Arvind wasn't just threatening her career. He was threatening her life, her existence. And there was nothing Samir could do. For the next few days, Samir became a ghost in his own mansion, haunted by the looming shadows. He barely ate, barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind felt like an omen, a sign that the nightmare was creeping closer. He avoided his stepfather, though the man's presence lingered in every room, in every shadow. Then, one night, as Samir lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling, something shifted in the house. The air grew thick, oppressive, and a low hum vibrated through the walls. His pulse quickened, and a deep sense of unease settled over him. A noise, soft, barely a whisper, came from the hallway. Footsteps. Samir sat up, his heart pounding in his chest. He strained to listen, but the house had fallen eerily silent. Still, that sense of something wrong gnawed at him. He slipped out of bed, moving toward the door. The hallway was empty, but the air felt wrong. It was as if the very walls were alive, watching him, waiting for something. He could feel it, the darkness seeping in, curling around his legs like smoke, cold and suffocating. His hand instinctively reached for his phone. But then he heard it, a soft, chilling whisper. "Let her go." The voice was unmistakable. "Arvind." Samir turned, his blood freezing as he saw his stepfather standing in the shadows at the far end of the hallway. His figure loomed like a specter, the dim light barely illuminating the twisted smile on his face. "If you want her to live, Samir," Arvind said, his voice dripping with venom, "you'll stay away. Or I'll make sure she knows real fear. You've never seen what I'm truly capable of." Samir's throat tightened, his breath shallow and ragged. His stepfather's presence filled the hallway like a black hole, consuming all the light, all the hope. The mansion seemed to pulse with malevolence, the walls closing in, suffocating him with the weight of the horror that Arvind had become. Samir wanted to scream, to lash out, but his voice was caught in his throat, paralyzed by the terror of what might happen to Riya if he dared defy this devil. He had no choice but to obey. Arvind took a step closer, his grin widening into something unnatural, something grotesque. "I'll ruin her, Samir. I'll break her in ways you can't even fathom. And when I'm done, you won't even recognize her." Samir's vision blurred with unshed tears. His mind screamed for him to fight, but his body betrayed him, frozen in place by the fear of losing Riya forever. "Stay away," Arvind whispered, his voice now barely a breath, "or she'll wish she was never born." With that, Arvind melted back into the shadows, leaving Samir standing alone, trembling in the cold, haunted corridor. And as the darkness swallowed the house once more, Samir knew, there was no escape from the abyss that had claimed his soul. What will Samir do next? Will he defy Arvind's warning to save Riya, or will he be forced to abandon her to protect her life? Can Samir find a way to expose the darkness surrounding Arvind and his sinister threats, or is the abyss too deep to escape? Will Riya uncover the truth about Samir's silence, or will she continue to believe that he's given up on her? What horrifying plans does Arvind have for Riya if Samir dares to act? Is there a way to outsmart him before it's too late? Who is the mysterious figure that called Samir, threatening him to drop the investigation into Riya's dismissal? Could they be a potential ally or another dangerous enemy? How far is Samir willing to go to protect the one he loves? Will he confront Arvind's terrifying power head-on, or has fear consumed him entirely? What did Arvind mean by saying, "You'll never see what I'm truly capable of"? Could there be darker secrets lurking beneath the surface? Will the mansion, now filled with oppressive energy and eerie whispers, become an inescapable prison for Samir? Or is there a hidden way out of the darkness that grips the house? As the shadows of the past close in, can Samir find strength within himself to fight for Riya, or will he lose her forever to the abyss that threatens to swallow them both? See you again with Chapter 4, Silent Whispers of Love.